The Nurarihyon. No, no, Nurarihyon? No, Nurarihyon. Nurarihyon. No, no. Oh, fuck. In Gantz, the Nurarihyon is an alien that stands alone, and just how fucking horrifying it is, how disgusting it is, how sexual it is, which are all themes that follow in Gantz pretty strongly. So it makes sense that one of the final aliens that they fight is basically an amalgamation of everything that's gone on in the manga, just in a horrific, dehumanized form while still appearing human at times. I'm gonna be hiding over here. I'm gonna probably at this point I'll probably have like put in some shit over here. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm not good at editing, so maybe that'll make sense. Anyway, everybody's always posting online. What the fuck is the Nurarihyon? No, fuck. What the fuck is the Nurarihyon? Was he a god alien? And like, why does the Nurarihyon and Sebastian both have the same conversation about God? Like, what's up with that? You know? Well, I went through the pages and I've collected all evidence linking the Nurarihyon, Sebastian, and the god aliens. So let me try to paint the picture for you as best I can. Okay, let's start with the surface level stuff. What are the powers? The god aliens are shown to obliterate Corona's body when he leaps to attack them. This happens in front of the god aliens. Remember that. The Nurarihyon pins the Tokyo Gantz team in an alleyway, and when Inaba, I think, when one of the members tries to jump over the Nurarihyon, his body is obliterated. Also, the guy is still in front of him. Also, the Nurarihyon obliterates Nishi when he tries to attack him with the Z-gun in camouflage, and Nishi is in front of him. It's also important to note that every time the Nurarihyon is killed, where he doesn't instantly reform, it's when he's killed seemingly out of surprise. I mean, just look at the face over here. He seems pretty surprised, right? The god aliens can reform data into matter and also unform it. And the way this happens is it essentially starts with the heart and then coalesces kind of like a bunch of meat coming together. It's pretty gross. But one of the Nurarihyon's reformations looks eerily similar to the way the god aliens reform humans. This is just a random piece of trivia, but one of the Nurarihyon's forms is just a sphere of a bunch of black balls that explode into a grenade. I find that interesting because nothing else is a black ball in Gantz, save for the Gantz balls. So it seems like there's a natural kind of connection there between the Nurarihyon and the Gantz team and the Gantz balls, beyond just the fact that they are forced into conflict with each other. So my hot take for the god aliens and the Nurarihyon, if they are one of the same race, the reason the god aliens stand back to back when they're in the room of truth is because if they weren't, then they could be attacked and killed. The god aliens' head and chest cavities both have a bunch of human faces and dogs and random crap appear, but at least 3 of the faces that appear in the god aliens' head and chest cavities are former aliens that the Gantz team has fought. One of them being Canon, the boss from the Buddhist temple arc, and then 2 of them are forms of the Nurarihyon. And the last peculiar face that we see in the god aliens is that of Sebastian, who is the German interpreter who is helping the Japanese investigator try to figure out what's going on with the Gantz balls, if you remember that plot. Sebastian's a pretty interesting figure. He basically leads around the interpreter and knows that the interpreter isn't satisfied with the answers that he got about the creation of the Gantz balls and how it was just, a German businessman's mentally disabled daughter just sputtering random numbers that turned into technology to make cloning and total obliteration guns. So Sebastian calls him out, asks him to come outside, and just like starts pontificating wildly about, just think about it like the Matrix, or just think about it whatever sci-fi. I can come up with any kind of excuse that you want. And then the conversation gets weird. So the part that's weird is the Nurarihyon asks the Gantz team, do you feel the presence of God? And he implies, if God, was he like a human? What form would God take? And then just the Nurarihyen's existence is itself an act of God to destroy the earth. And then, fast forward, after the Osaka arc, Sebastian asks the investigator, have you ever felt the presence of God? And then, is God like a person? Or what shape does he take? Once again, asking the same question the Nurarihyon posed to the Tokyo Gantz team. But he asks it in the past tense. The Nurarihyon asks, do you feel the presence of God? Sebastian asks, have you ever felt the presence of God? Which, there's an implication there that the Nurarihyon itself thinks of itself as a god. And who are the aliens that we know to be the closest to God in the Gantz manga? Well, the god aliens, right? That sounds a little too obvious, but yeah, whatever. Blow me. So Sebastian talks about God. The Nurarihyon pontificates that his existence and killing of the Tokyo team and the Osaka team is an act of God. That's something that links these two characters. And if something happens once, it's a coincidence. If something happens 2 times, it becomes less of a coincidence. But when it happens 3 times, between 3 different characters, those characters are linked and you have a pattern. And because the third character that talks about God are the God aliens. Specifically, I think the Hitler face appears when the God aliens say that there is no God, which is interesting because when the God aliens are asked about souls, they have to ask if the 21 grams of data that goes to the data dimension, I guess Gantz takes place in the Digimon world, if that is the soul that the humans are talking about. So the God aliens are not omniscient? They don't know everything. And that's the same thing with the Nurarihyon, is that the Nurarihyon has a great deal of intentional mind reading because the Nurarihyon is wise enough to be able to detect and kill Nishi when he is aiming the Z-gun at him from stealth. But Kato, depending on the translation you have, is thinking internally that he forgets how to fight. So when the Nurarihyon shows up to finally kill him, he asks him to stop and asks him, why do we have to fight? And if you remember, before Kato was revived, we are given a sneak peek at what it was like for him to basically be dead, which the manga implies that Kato and the Buddhist temple boss, Kanon, are in this eternal struggle where they're asking why they have to fight. And Kanon asks Kato, why are they killing the aliens? And Kato turns around and asks this very question to the Nurarihyon. Why are we forced to kill? Why do we have to fight you? Nobody wants this. So Kanon, Nurarihyon, God aliens, and Sebastian. All of them appear in the God aliens chest. All of them have conversations that are very similar that link them all together. Some more random trivia. One of the reformations of the Nurarihyon looks like the Gantz inhabitant, and the Gantz inhabitant also has the ability, like the God aliens, and like the Nurarihyon. The God aliens, without being able to ask any questions, resurrect people very close to Kurono and Kato. They could only know this if they could read feelings but not minds. They don't know everything. They can't dive into your mind and understand what a soul is from your perspective, but they can know who matters to you. The same thing with the Gantz inhabitant. When Reika returns to the room, she says to resurrect the old man, but the Gantz inhabitant pauses and he resurrects Kurono because my belief is that the Gantz inhabitants are human god alien hybrids, so they have a degree of psychic reasoning where they can understand a character's true motives and thus use that to respond. So there's a lot of things that connect these 5 characters now together, but I think the real home run thing is what the fuck are the god aliens? And in that, we have to examine canon. So at the beginning or end of one chapter, the god aliens are basically bragged that they're going to bring back the dead, and the chapter header reads, "The wheel of Samsara turns, favoring those they could not save." And it references Samsara, and it shows the Buddhist temple boss. These are all really intentional things. Referencing Samsara on its own would be one thing. Having Kanon, the Buddhist temple boss, that would be another thing. But when you put them together, you're making a statement. And what I believe the God aliens are is that they are essentially Buddhist deities that have achieved nirvana, because they don't care about human life in any kind of reverence above any other kind of life, and they see it all in this cycle of repeated greed and birth and death. That's what samsara is. It's this never-ending cycle that traps the human spirit in reincarnation until they can reach nirvana and they no longer have to be trapped in the cycle of greed and mundane existence. And that's what the God aliens can do. They can reach into the reincarnation data dimension and yoink people out and make them again. Because I think the presumption is that everybody's actually dead in Gantz, and they are essentially soulless clones. But then also Gantz makes a big point that it essentially doesn't matter what they are or who they are. What matters is that they matter. They matter to themselves. The feelings and the way that they interact with the world makes meaning, and that meaning enriches their lives, and that's how they find value. It's really an existential kind of story in a lot of ways. So Too Long didn't read. Sebastian and Nurarihyon both reference God. Cato and Canon both question the necessity of having to fight to the Nurarihyon. Canon, Nurarihyon, two forms, Sebastian, all appear in the God alien. Oh, one final piece of trivia. After the God aliens kill Corono, the face that appears above Cato is that of Abraham Lincoln, which I think makes sense. To the God aliens, killing a body so that it can be reincarnated and have another chance at achieving nirvana is a form of freeing themselves from a kind of slavery of the sin skin from the skin. Yeah, let's go with that one. Yeah, so anyway, hopefully this is cut together in a way that's not total dog shit. Maybe it makes sense. Fuck, I'm sorry about that. That probably made a lot of noise. Maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but this is my first time doing something like this, so hopefully it wasn't dog shit.